Hey booktube, it's David from Live Forever Die Trying, and today I have my December wrap up for you. All in all, December was a solid month to finish off the last year. I ended up completing 4 more books to round the total off to around 62. As you know, my goal for reading in 2020 was a book a week, so I did pass that goal by a good margin. In part due to being at home from the pandemic, I was able to get some more reading in. All in all, the books were super solid. I don't think I rate any of them less than a 3 out of 5. I did notice there is kind of a future focus between them, even though we cover some different ground. So we have a book on longevity, a book on climate change and geoengineering, as well as I want to touch on solar punk. And then we had a revolutionary text and then a regular old political book. So without further ado, let's start off with that extremist revolutionary text. That was Technological Slavery by Ted Kaczynski. So if you know, you know, this is the Unabomber. Schizophrenic dude with a messed up moral compass, but undoubtedly a pretty smart individual. If you're not familiar with the Unabomber, basically he was kind of like a child prodigy, but he was always a social outcast. He ended up going to Harvard at 16, didn't make a lot of friends, ended up getting recruited into the MK Ultra guys' psychological study where they kind of broke him down a little bit, borderline or probably not borderline, just straight unethical. And then he ends up retreating from society. He goes to live in the woods in Montana. One day he goes up for a hike, sees neighborhoods in suburbia encroaching on him, when all he wants to be is left alone. And then he takes what any sane person would do and takes that opportunity to start mailing bombs to people. So part of the reason he did that is explained in this book within his manifesto, Industrial Society and Its Future. This book is also contains a lot of his other writings through other intellectuals from different universities, people critiquing his work, as well as it's kept up to date with a revised copy coming out in 2017 to update his thoughts. So, what does this book actually talk about? Why is he a madman, but why does he also have like a few good points? So, what he's saying is that modern society has an issue with surrogate activities. And what he means by that is he thinks that technology in modern society is keeping humans from true happiness. So basically, he's arguing humans would be at their happiest in a more primal state, hunting, fishing for food, not farming. He wants you to get back into nature, feet on the ground type of guy. And he believes that that will fulfill your true happiness, making clothes for yourself, making and hunting your own food, and really getting back to what it means to be human. However, we live in a modern day industrial society. And what he says is that's undermining our happiness, because instead of actually hunting for our food, we instead become a doctor. We then do surgery on patients to then make money, to then buy food that somebody else created. And that surrogate activity, that in-between step to get to what we really want, which would be food in this instance, is what leads to an undermining of the human condition. And I do think he has a point on that specifically. In our modern society, we see a rapid uptick in anxiety and depression, and some people blame that on smartphones, some people blame that on just overall stress and capitalism. There's literally hundreds of reasons, but they're all in a way kind of related to industrial society. The other thing he talks about in this book is revolution. He thinks the only way to overcome this is to tear the whole thing down, to start a revolution, specifically a violent one. He doesn't think a peaceful one can get the job done. It's very interesting to hear him actually talk about strategizing a revolution. Obviously, he's way out there, and not a lot of people would agree with him, but it's fascinating kind of getting a look under the hood about what he thinks it will take. This also triggered a few questions in our book club we were talking about this, which is, theoretically, if there is this tension and distrust of technology that we do see coming to light, what would be the turning point? With racial tensions over the summer, we had the killing of George Floyd triggered the BLM. That tension was already there. Hypothetically, in a society where this tension keeps building against technology, whether through privacy concerns or censoring political candidates on social media, however justified. It's neither here nor there. But what would be the theoretical breaking point for a revolution for technology? In the book club, we discussed that there probably couldn't be one. Either people aren't in the know about the harms of technology, or they just don't care. Like, we saw the Cambridge Analytica full sale of our data in 2016. We've seen self-driving cars hit and kill people. We've seen just these kind of egregious uses of technology in the past, not to mention, drones, unpiloted aircraft bombing people. So if those aren't enough to cause it, is this really the issue? I just thought that was an interesting thought experiment. And I think this book completely neglects what the science can do moving forward. You've seen me review books like Fully Automated Luxury Communism on this channel, where through technology we can break off the chains of work, or, hypothetically in the future. And I would like to see Ted's take on that aspect. Can we leverage technology to get us back to a more primal state? If we can eliminate work and live in a era of post-consumption, or post-scarcity rather, then would you not be able to get back to what really makes you happy? Being with your family, actually making your own food and hunting for it, or, identify what Ted thinks would make you happy. I wonder if he could consolidate that future-focused view with his own. So all in all, I really enjoyed it. It's kind of a look into the mind of a madman, but he's also a very intelligent individual, so you have to give him a little bit of credit when his ideas make sense, however crazy the individual might be. Second up, we had Spring Chicken by Bill Gifford, Stay Young Forever or Die Trying. And I gotta be honest, I really only picked up this book because of the subtitle being so close to my username. When I read that Bill was just a journalist and not a scientist, I didn't think there's a lot of value for me personally to get out of this book. It's kind of an exploratory look about the life extension or longevity scene. Bill interviews quite a mini celebrity in the space, a scientist in the space. You see appearances from Aubrey de Grey, as well as David Sinclair and what they're working on. You see a number of commentaries about different theories of aging, whether that is, the free radical and antioxidant theory of aging, or whether that is the disposable soma theory of aging. I think this was written a little bit before the information theory of aging came out. But it also covers like sins and whatnot. This book is very good for people just trying to get into the space and want a lay of the land before diving into the research or the companies or the scientists or the specific theories, because it doesn't go into too in-depth into all of that. All in all, this is a very solid book for beginners in this space, however. I will say the one thing I personally learned out of this book was about the BLAST study out of Baltimore, the Baltimore Longitudinal Study, I believe. And basically, he goes through his experience taking that. In short, the BLAST study takes healthy individuals and then does 6,000 data points of testing on them. Stress test, cardiac test, blood test, MRIs, the works. And then every 4 years, looks at that individual's lifestyle and then retests them and then see how their biomarkers have changed according to their lifestyle. And that's something I'm definitely going to be following in the future and hopefully participating in if they'll actually let me in after COVID-19 lets up. Third up, I have a book that I'm not going to talk too much on because we've covered it extensively in the Past the Cover episode, but that is The War on Normal People by Andrew Yang, in which he lays out his thoughts on the current problems with America, specifically with automation, talent concentration among certain cities, as well as the cost of college and education, and his goal of establishing a universal basic income in America. Just a short review of the book. We greatly enjoyed it. It's a very realistic, data-driven look at American society right now, and it doesn't come across as an advertisement for just another politician. And then the fourth book of the month, possibly my favorite, is After Geoengineering by Holly Jean Buck. And this was just a fantastic book, and it had a new writing style that I've never encountered before, but really left me craving more. So, geoengineering, to start off with the definition, is a human intervention in nature. Specifically, in this book, carbon sequestering. So this would be like releasing sulfites into the air that reflect sunlight or create clouds, or carbon capture systems where you filter air and take the CO2 out of it to compress into a liquid to then store somewhere. This could also be like the cover, where you're growing kelp farms to then harvest the kelp into products and take carbon out the atmosphere that way. All in all, this is a anti-climate change book, or specifically how scientists can create interventionist steps to solve climate change when public policy is just too slow. Specifically, what I was referring to why I really like this book is it combines the science and the efficacy of those strategies with fictions. So she'll lay out potential dystopias that can happen because of these technologies, or potential utopias. And that really just led me to thinking about a trend I've been seeing more and more of lately, and I keep buying into the more I see it. And that is the themes within solar punk. So a lot of you have probably heard about cyberpunk recently, the video game, but the overarching sci-fi theme as well. Cyberpunk is basically an extension of where we are right now. Some would argue it is where we are right now, where basically you have a late-stage capitalistic society that basically you have a corporate-controlled government. Your democracy has been bought out by corporations, and you have a joblessness that is leading to, poverty in the streets, gangs, violence, prostitution, sex work against their will, basically. And these other societal issues. It's a very grim dystopian world. Solarpunk, on the other hand, is the opposite. I would argue it's more similar to a socialist or communist approach, but I think the economic system that it employs is less important than the overall aesthetic. So in Solarpunk, you live in this world where it's powered by future technology still, where you still have automation relieving people of work. You still have green tech, which is going to be, theoretically solving climate change in this example. But it also shows you a return to values, getting closer to family, getting closer to the earth, integrating with those things that truly make you happy. And it was kind of by chance that I read these two books together in the same month, because situating this with a possible utopian future based off technology really shows you what looking to the future can do. Basically, the potential technologies we can employ to actually chase after a better world rather than regressing to one that might have been better. So all in all, it was a very rounded month for me. A lot of focus on potential futures, economic systems, political systems, and comparing what we could be looking forward to or what we should look out for as far as regressing. So all in all, I thought it was a really interesting reading month. I made a lot of connections through the books, and that's something I see myself doing more and more often as I read. This is only second year reading nonfiction, or reading in general, I suppose. But I notice over time, I'm able to make these connections between books, and it feels like I'm fleshing out ideas, much more so than I did in my first year of reading. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you today. As always, let me know your thoughts on the books below. If you have any recommendations that you'd like me to read coming up, feel free to drop those below as well. If you want to support the channel, you can always subscribe or like. Helps me along the algorithm. And if you want to purchase any of these, I have Amazon affiliate links in the description below. But I always recommend you prioritizing local bookstores or charity first. You can always use smile.amazon.com to donate a portion to charity. Anyways, see you around.